Here we go, episode 5 extended. Now, what you just witnessed a moment ago was Cray Cray saying, "I'm so bored." It's got cabin fever really bad. Anyhow, I was just explaining this humorous experience from Tokyo FOB, where our guys, our inventive guys, had gotten a hold of a couple of 50 caliber machine guns. And they got this brilliant idea that a slick, these H models, well, no, the D model slicks that we had uh, could be rigged up with 50 caliber machine guns and just deadly firepower. I mean, a 50 caliber machine gun fires a bullet that's about the size of my thumb, and wowee, to have two of them on a slick, that's just incredible firepower. So anyhow, they went to great extremes to hook up these 250 calibers to the skids of Slick, and I mean the skid was the only place that was hard enough to accept the the hard points for the 50 cal. Sorry about that nose, man. The allergies driving me insane. All right, so um, they eventually hooked them up. Nice welding and bolts and all kinds of stuff. And so they're going to test fire it on the ground. And so, anyhow, three, two, one, bada bing, bada boom. And they started shooting those 50 caliber machine guns. And the old helicopter went, boom. The recoil from those 50 caliber machine guns just pushed it, just skidded it right across the terrain. Anyhow, it was pretty clear that if the helicopter couldn't hold a 50 caliber on the ground, that it would turn it upside down if you tried it in the air. So wiser heads prevailed, I guess. Okay, so soon after that, I'm back in the train and I'm going to the steam bath and I'm eating grilled ham and cheese sandwiches and everything is, well, I'm, considering that it's a war zone, but it was pretty okay. I mean, I could get a pass and leave the company area and go walking down into Nha Trang and get into all kinds of trouble, or go the other way on the dirt road and end up on the beach. And God, what a beautiful beach, man! Woohoo! And anyhow, I remember a lecture from the first sergeant, and he was saying, "Okay, you guys, you think you're going to the beach? Well, let me tell you, this is the tropics, and you get burned so much worse here than back in the States. So anybody that gets a sunburn is going to get an automatic Article 15, because I'm warning you, don't go down there and get sunburned and think you're getting out of duty." Well, the first time I went down there to the beach, I swam out to the raft in the ocean, and I didn't have hardly any base tan at all, no tan at all on my legs. And I went out to this raft, and it was so idyllic. I fell asleep for about 20 minutes. And I thought, oh man, I look pink. And I did look pink, man. So I went back to the company area. I didn't stay at the beach very long at all. And my legs were so badly sunburned. I had one blister that went from my knee up to my crotch. And when that son of a bitch popped and the skin peeled off, oh my God, it was an agony. But I couldn't admit that I was hurting uh, without getting an Article 15. So I just put some, um, what do you call that cream that you put on something so it doesn't get infected. Well, anyhow, uh, I went, did my work, and Uh, about that time of getting burned, I discovered that I had developed a new talent because I just stood still in the formation in my regular place in the back row, and the sergeant was calling my name, and I just stood there silent, and I discovered that I had become invisible, and they could look right at me and couldn't see me. And one of the guys in the formation says, "Oh, you've become the ghost." What? The ghost? And everybody had a nickname in Vietnam, and I thought, oh, ghost, that's not a bad nickname. And I realized on reflection that during the Tet Offensive and being up there in Pleiku, I had reached a point where I didn't really worry about being killed because I felt like I was already dead. I had already died. I'd been killed in the Tet Offensive. And of course, if you're a ghost, you can't be killed because you're already dead. Uh, there's a great scene in a movie called 12 O'Clock High where Gregory Peck explains that to his air crews that it's a lot easier if you think of yourself as already dead. So, anyhow, that's how I became the ghost. Is that they could look right at me and I couldn't be seen, and it was wonderful because when they were dirty jobs that had to be done, like the outhouses had the bottom parts of 55-gallon drums, and that's what you pooped into. And then every day they'd pull those drums out and they'd pour some jet fuel in on top of it and light it on fire. And those guys were called the shit burners. And that was the lousiest job ever. And when it rolled around to be my time to do shit burning, I couldn't be found. Where's Wilson? I don't know. Where's Wilson? I don't know. Well, he's the ghost. So I became the ghost. And so there I was. Okay, so now I want to tell you about uh, the next time that I went to the field. This is the time I'm pretty sure that I went to Danang because I was really getting into the groove of being a reliable supply specialist where I was keeping all of the records and doing all of the reordering and receiving all of the product from the depot and sorting it out and making sure that the right tail rotor hubs got dispensed, etc., etc. And I mean, I felt really guilty because I was complicit in carrying out this war of aggression being uh, foisted on the American people by the government. But I wasn't there fighting for the government. Uh, I was there trying to take care of my fellow soldiers. And it didn't matter if I was a ghost or not, man. I still had this uh, responsible, responsible deal. Okay, so anyhow, I'm doing my deal. Got sent back to Nha Trang, and I'm enjoying being at 5th Special Forces headquarters and smoking a lot, and visiting the houses of ill repute. And I mean, you just walk down the dirt road a little bit, and there were several to choose from. And boy, I felt really terrible about that because I realized that having America in their economy the way that it did created hyperinflation. And the only way that these families could support grandma and grandpa is to sell their daughters into prostitution. And horrible thoughts, horrible thoughts. I was a bad person to be so selfish while I was there. I found myself kicking myself again and again because I should have gone to Sweden, etc., etc. Alrighty, well, there I was in the Trang, and here we go. They said, okay, Wilson, we want you to take this half-ton trailer and build a supply shack so that we can run advanced operations out of Danang. No problem. And so I got the dimensions from the Air Force about how big I could build this trailer. I never thought to ask him how much it could weigh. But they offered me a Vietnamese construction crew, a carpentry crew. And so I drew up this design for a shack on top of this half-ton trailer. And it was big. It was big. I couldn't stand up in it, but close to. And when it rained, man, I could close the door and be dry as a bug in a rug in there. Well, anyhow, I had plenty of room for dozens and dozens and dozens of helicopter parts. I mean, I didn't have everything, but I had a ton. And I told you in an earlier episode about the first time I tried to take that trailer onto a C-130. Oh my God, that was terrifying. I thought I had really fouled up in a major way because I built it to the dimensions that they gave me. But when it came to roll it up the ramp, the roof of my trailer hit the lip of the back of the load gate of the C-130. And I thought, oh shit, I'm doomed. I am doomed. I'm really in trouble now. They're going to blame me for this. But I know I built it to the right dimensions. So the loadmaster came and, I think that if he could have given me a Valium at that time, he probably would have. But he did something even better. He let most all of the air out of the tires of that trailer, and it just rolled right in. It was very happy. And it didn't need a lot of air in order to ride in an airplane. When we got to Danang, we just pumped it up, and it was good to go. It was sweet exaltation, happiness. I felt good about reaching my goal. So anyhow, there I was in Danang, and Danang was a really strange environment for me because I was like the only Army guy on the flight line. The flight line there at Danang was, I would say 90% Air Force and 8% Marines and 2% Army. And I was there literally, for all intents and purposes, by myself. And the Special Forces had an operation that was just a couple of miles south of the runway there in Danang. I think it was called Marble Mountain. It might have been called Monkey Mountain, but anyhow, it was this pinnacle right there at the shore, and the Special Forces had taken it over. Well, I was billeted with the Marines. I ate in a Marine chow hall, and I slept in a Marine tent, And I found myself hanging out with a bunch of Marines, and they told me about how Danang had been so unmercifully attacked by the NVA rockets and just blown to bits. They're trying to destroy the air operations, which of course they couldn't do, but they didn't know that, so they kept sending the rockets, sending the rockets, sending the rockets. And so I guess it was, well, some Saturday or Sunday where I didn't have to go to a formation and I didn't have to be there to do business. And so some of the Marines took me up to a place called China Beach. And oh my God, China Beach was like being, I mean, I'd never been to California at that time, but it was like being teleported back into America. And there were beautiful beach bunny girls. I mean, the nurses from the hospital in Danang. And I couldn't believe how many good looking women there were. And of course, there were a ton of good looking available Vietnamese girls as well. Uh, so China Beach was like a huge party. And they had these big outdoor speakers. I remember there were Utah speakers, horns, metal horns. They sounded like crap. And they were playing all of this cheesy rock and roll and music that I didn't like at all. So it kind of, uh, the only thing that I could do at China Beach that had any appeal to me was go to the water. And oh my God, the water at China Beach, it was just, I mean, it wasn't surfing. It wasn't surfing waves, but it was these nice little Hawaii type of waves and gentle and long and beautifully formed that would go on forever. And I was thinking to myself, this is the garden spot. I mean, this is the best beach in the world. And that's gorgeous. Well, that was on the plus side. On the downside was that these Marines that I was hanging with, they were crazy. They were crazy. I mean, I've seen a lot of soldiers that had been rubbed the wrong way and had very bad attitudes, but these guys were, I mean, over the line. And they invited me to their bunker, and they had huge, huge bunkers that were made with walls of sandbags that were 3 and 4 feet thick and had perforated steel planking roofs in these bunkers with 3 or 4 thicknesses of sandbags on top. I mean, they were just humongous bunkers. And I went in to check it out, and those guys were shooting up heroin. And I thought, oh my God, we've lost this war. Oh my God, we've lost this war. So I left the bunker and I walked down the flight line, and I walked and I walked and I walked. And I pulled out my joint and I started smoking a joint. And I just kept walking down the runway, and I got to a point, maybe 3/4 of the way down the runway, and I heard this roaring sound, and here comes the F4 Phantoms, and they got right down to where I was, and pulled up enough speed that they just went right directly up into the sky. And then another one, and then another one. And I'm sitting there smoking a joint, and every time these naval aviators come roaring down the runway. I'm standing there at attention, giving them the full salute. And boy, oh boy, I mean, I couldn't have been 10 yards away from those jets taking off. It was just, well, it's not to coin a phrase, but it was an adventure. And thinking, how can we organize an effort to keep those phantoms in the air, to keep prosecuting this war and we were spending $1 million a minute in Vietnam. And those weren't just millions of 2020 dollars, they were millions of 1968 dollars. And to put that in perspective, a loaf of bread was a dime and a gallon of gas was 30 cents. 1968 dollars. Well, that about wraps it up for episode 5. We'll see you in episode 6. And when we get to episode 6, I think I'll tell you something really interesting about my service in Vietnam and some of the new lessons that I learned. Oh my goodness, such okay. So if you enjoy this story, invite a friend to come and partake. And God bless you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I hope to see you again real soon. Oh, and don't forget to breathe. Peace out.